Hello, everybody. We are here with Nick Nicholas, author, trainer, public speaker, and coach, life coach. And the topic of our conversation over these last several days has been peace of mind and how we go about getting peace of mind in a world that seems to be the last days, if you will. There are people talking about that right now with the virus, the chaos of looting in the streets and so forth. Over this past weekend, or this past weekend, really, we've been talking about how to go from a kind of frantic lifestyle when you push the panic button a lot to having peace of mind. And Nick's book, Reclaim My Life, My Journey Back to God, which is on Amazon, talks about that. That's the whole purpose of the book, is to get people to overcome their fear and enjoy peace of mind. And today, Nick, the big question I have for you is this. Once we achieve a certain level of peace where our positive energy is on even keel, you ever meet those people who are just, they don't seem to get rattled by much? You know, NFL quarterbacks, for example. on the field, for example, they don't get rattled by much. They seem to kind of go through their motion no matter what happens.
Sure.
So when you reach a plateau of peace of mind where you're not getting rattled by much, how do you go from that to having joy or even unspeakable joy?
That's probably a really good question. You brought up an interesting point. When you reach that point in your life where you can maintain a sense of peace. So let me ask you just a quick question.
Sure.
What is joy?
Ooh, that's a good one, isn't it?
Joy, in my opinion, is living a life of peace.
Okay.
Because joy means that I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
I'm happy to be with you, with my spouse, with being around other people. I just have a very positive feeling and a positive attitude.
Okay.
But you brought up the professional quarterback, and how they remain cool. We can only have peace and feel joy when we feel a high level of internal security. Now, in order to have a high level of internal security, we have to have confidence and faith in what we do, i.e. ourselves. We have to have faith in those around us. This quarterback's surrounded by 10 other men that he can count on. And then, of course, we have to have our faith in God. And everybody sees that differently. So once we have those three strongly, then we're not going to be rattled that much.
Okay. So how do you go from that to overflowing with a desire to share what you have or your faith in God with other people?
Okay. It's kind of a double-edged sword. First of all, once you reach a high level of peace, you tend to feel the pain of others more acutely.
Okay.
It's amazing how you can see in the faces of people the stress they're going through.
Absolutely.
I had a client that I was actually doing business coaching combined with life coaching. And she had hit a glass ceiling with her income and had tried for years to break it. She'd worked with coaches, etc. None of it had ever helped her.
Okay.
So we started out just doing the business coaching, and then I came to understand that somewhere in her mind, she had been told she didn't deserve to be successful as she expected to be.
Right.
So what caused that? And we started talking about it, and all of a sudden one day she walked into one of our sessions, sat down, and she said, "Where do you want to start?" I said, "I just want you to tell me why you don't deserve to be successful." Without even thinking, she started talking, and out came a major event in her early life.
Okay.
Now, up to that point, when she would come into a session or when I would see her in her office, her face was drawn,
Right.
her voice was affected, she actually slumped a little bit.
Right.
A week after we had that session where she identified the problem, I walked into the office and the receptionist said, "Are you here to see so-and-so?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "I don't know what you did, but she's not the same person."
Right.
And I said, "I don't think I did anything." And so all of a sudden she came out of her office and I looked at her and just like, wow.
Yeah.
The wrinkles were gone, the frown was gone, the slump was gone, the voice was strong. So I guess the way to answer your question, what is joy? Joy is just being glad that you're in the situation that you're in. But here's what you said, sustained.
Right.
You get joyful, you're feeling good, you've got a good sense of peace. It doesn't stay that way. We live in a world of threat.
Yes, we do.
We have two emotions, love and fear. Love is a positive emotion, leads us in a positive direction. Fear is a negative emotion and leads us in a negative direction. What we have to understand, though, is that our number one instinct is survival. We will do anything to survive. Now, it's not just life and death. It could be in all areas of your life, your relationship, your life, your finances, your profession, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. We want to survive. Every day, threats come. And right now, the threats are coming one on top of the other on top of the other.
Right.
But here's what happens. The minute we're faced with a threat, we automatically react with fear.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It protects us. It saves our lives sometimes.
Right.
We react quickly and save our life. Problem is, we dwell on it.
Oh, yes.
And when we do, what's happening now, we're converting all of our love, positive energy over into negative energy.
Right.
It starts to show in our physical appearance
Right.
and everything else. The next thing is that if I can change your thought process,
Right.
all of a sudden you start to convert that energy the other direction.
Right.
So here's the key. How do you make that conversion? The conversion is ultimately made by learning how to manage fear.
Okay.
You notice I didn't say control.
I understood that.
You cannot control fear,
Right.
but you can manage it. But how do you manage it? You can't manage something you don't understand. So I'm going to give you a definition of fear that you can use that is solid. My son's an engineer. He likes data. First time I told him this, he said, well, okay, that may be something I can get my hands on because it's some data. Here's the definition. Fear is nothing but a question. And if you look back over your life, every time you've been frightened or upset, consciously or subconsciously, you're asking yourself, could I handle this?
Right.
Am I going to come out the other side?
Right.
We normally say no, or I don't know, which is fear of the unknown. Takes us to another level of fear. But here's the real truth. Real truth is this energy that I'm talking about, the positive, the negative, that's our spiritual energy. I refer to it as human energy as well. And what happens is that human energy is constantly going back and forth. Once I can say, am I going to be all right? And follow it with a definitive belief in the fact that, yes, I will be all right because I have the skill, ability, knowledge, and strength to handle anything that comes my way.
Are you subconsciously also saying, when you say, yes, everything's going to be okay, are you subconsciously making a determination that you're going to do whatever you can humanly possible to solve the problems that are up against you?
You've already made that decision.
Okay. That helps in the process.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
You've already made that decision. The question is, can you say it and believe it knowing that you may not like the outcome?
But your past, having overcome things in the past, can also help you.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, because you did some things before. You were here before, but you overcame that.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you can look back over your life, every time you've been challenged, you found a way to handle it.
Right.
Didn't come out the way you wanted it every time, but you may have been a little battered, a little whatever, but you came out the other side, and you're still standing.
We're still standing.
Yeah. Now I have to tell you, I've had clients challenge me and say, "Wait a minute, Nick. What if this kills me?"
Right.
And that's always a potential. And I said, well, that's a two-sided question. Two answers. First is, none of us are going to get out of this thing alive. Second is, with survival being such a strong instinct, we will use absolutely everything at our disposal to ensure that we survive.
Right.
If we don't, guess what? It was your time. There was nothing you were going to do to stop it.
I was listening to a news report somewhere regarding doctors and how they see that when a patient has a very strong spiritual strength, they tend to recover quicker. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of debate about that. Is it God's will or whoever? But it could be true. I mean, if somebody has a strong conscious spirit about themselves, and they're people might call them a fighter or something like that. But they want to survive, and they also attract a lot of people to them, to love them. It seems to build and help the recovery process. How does that fit into what you do?
Well, it's very, very interesting what you just said. Over the last 18 months, I've had 4 major surgeries.
Wow.
And every one of my surgeons read my book, believe it or not. And one of them was having a conversation with me when I went in for a follow-up. And we got to talking about the book. And he said, Nick, I want to tell you something. He said, after reading your book and having some conversations with you, he said, I've come up with a new term. I said, okay, what's that? He said, I refer to it as emotional medicine. And I said, okay, explain what you mean by that. He said, look, I'm really good at what I do. I can save people's lives all the time. But he said, if my patient doesn't have their emotion and their mind in the right place, it doesn't make any difference what I do, because they just do not have the will to live. And I could have done my best work and they're still going to die.
Right.
So he said, I'm actually going to make some modifications to the way that I practice medicine.
Wow.
I am going to be more positive, whereas before sometimes I was a little bit careful as to what I said to a patient, because, let's face it, we all worry about malpractice. We all worry about what the attorneys are going to do if we say the wrong thing. But he said, all of a sudden I begin to realize what I have to do is make sure that my major concern is my patient.
Right.
I will encourage them more than I have in the past.
Ah, wonderful.
And be more open and more sincere about it. And he said, I am of the opinion that that will help to change their mindset. And I told him, you're absolutely right, because positive thought, which is what you're giving them, generates a positive feeling connected to the positive emotion of love and increases your positive energy.
Right.
Converting all that negative. And once you do that, your body, your mind, and your spirit becomes much stronger than it was before.
Wow, that's a lot in a few minutes. I hope you got that. We're going to be wrapping this up. And again, this is Nick Nicholas, life coach, public speaker, and also author of Reclaim My Life, My Journey Back to God, which is on Amazon. I strongly encourage you to read the book. Because it's just got a lot of good information about your whole life. And it's for everybody, not just for certain people. We all have baggage. We all have problems and issues we want to work through. And just want to say, is there anything else that you wanted to add to the conversation?
Well, just one more quick comment. There is information in the book, but I have a website.
Okay, that's right.
Nick Coaches. And if you will go out there are blogs, there are some testimonials. There's a women's page that kind of talks about I've done some interviews, and women share how they are responding to all the stuff that's going on right now. There's a veterans page, which my son that's basically his page, because he's focused on healing veterans. And and there's more information all the time. All these podcasts are going to be linked to the website.
That's nickcoaches.com. Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, thank you again. We're in Lake Pleasant, Arizona, and Paul D'Agostino, Nick Nicholas. Hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.